Welcome to Pull the Pin Already, a place where average veterans come to share their views on the world we live in. We can't promise you'll like what we have to say, but we will promise it's genuine. I'm Jim.
And I'm Mike.
And it's time to pull the pin. So let's get started. If you haven't read the disclaimer, our disclaimer is we do not represent the views of the U.S. military, nor do we pretend to believe that all military personnel share our opinion. So we thought it appropriate. Our first discussion is going to be about veterans who try to speak for all veterans. Have you have any experience with that, Mike?
I've had a lot of experience. Matter of fact, I've had experience with that almost on a daily basis. And the one thing I try to tell people is you can't paint everyone with a broad brush. And I'm sure you've experienced that. So at my job where I work here on Fort Hood, I like to tell people you can't speak for all veterans if you haven't gone through everything that those vets have gone through. We have military police, we have tanker vets, we have medical vets where I work. So everyone's experience is different. You know, I know we were all soldiers, but the one thing I always say is, no, you can't say some people have deployed and some of us have not. So how can my experience be the same as someone who's been to Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq and multiple times, you know? And that's why I try to tell people, don't do it. It's wrong.
Yeah, I can totally relate, and it's interesting too because you're seeing it almost like it's in the military. It's actually happening while people are still in the military, and
Yes.
that's fascinating because I tend to see a lot of it outside. I mean, I'm already retired, and outside the military, I've had encounters. I mean, even with people in normal conversations, and they'll like blow up their chest. Well, I'm a veteran, and and I sit there and think, I'm like, well, you're one veteran. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't speak for me, and what's
Right.
coming out of your mouth isn't what I believe. So I've seen people do that, and I think somehow the military veteran, the thanks for your service, all that stuff, although it's very appreciative, but I think sometimes guys, they hang their hat on that. They kind of feel like that I'm wearing this veteran status, so I am the military. And,
Yes.
I'm not going to lie, maybe I've even felt victim of that before. Maybe I've done it. Maybe I've barged into a social media conversation and said, hey, I'm a veteran and I love this country, and I've probably done it myself, but I don't really fool myself into thinking that everyone thinks like me.
Right. Now, with me, what I like to tell people is if you, for instance, when I was in Afghanistan as a contractor, I spent more time overseas in the Middle East as a contractor than I did when I was in the military. But when I was over there, I met an E7, and he said he believes that hero title is used way too much. And a lot of the younger soldiers now are coming in the military thinking automatically they are a hero. And next thing you know, you have a hero that is in Leavenworth. And you and I both know about Leavenworth, right?
Not personally.
Yeah. So just because
I can't speak for you.
no,
But I've never been in
I've
Leavenworth.
been there.
I've seen it.
I've been there. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, no, I was on a tour. I was there.
glad you clarified that. We're
Oh
off
yeah.
to a great start. A couple veteran felons coming
Yeah.
live.
I was in Mannheim as well, over in Germany. Oh yeah, yeah.
I did work the medium and minimum custody prison at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I can tell you some stories from that, but we ain't got time for that.
And what I notice is it's just like the civilian prisons or institutions, jails. It's no different, except they once donned the uniform.
Right.
So these people with that Sergeant First Class was telling me was not everyone's a hero just because they don the uniform. And I totally agree.
Right, and you see it too. I think you touched on it earlier about deployments. And I was stationed in Hawaii for 3 years, and I know you can
Really?
imagine. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know you can imagine that those career people that end up in Hawaii for 9 years, their deployments are not the same as our deployments.
Exactly.
But yet they are so willing to share a lot of their opinions and advice because they're, veterans or their rank is so high. It's kind of funny. Like I said, I don't discredit them. If you've been in a staff job for 10, 15 years, when I go to file my paperwork, I expect the best. But if you're going to try to tell me about what it's like to be on the front line or even anywhere near it, it's kind of like, come on, dude, I get it. You outranked me. Just stay in your lane.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. See, I'm different. As military police, like we were, I didn't like the Air Force SPs. I couldn't stand them. I was jealous. I'm not gonna lie about it. When when we had to work, we had a joint operation with them, and I found out they are not allowed to work more than 8 hours. Yeah, jealousy set in there. You know.
Mike, we can have a whole discussion about the Air Force. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate every branch. And if I could do it all over again, I would have been in the Air Force.
Same here. And
Nope.
you know, I bet there's some Air Force veterans who are saying no.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the different branches with this too. That's interesting because do you find any specific branch that tends to do, the I speak for the military thing more than any other branch?
No, speak for the entire military. No, I don't think I've ever encountered that. Well, I only say that because most of the time, an army person is going to speak up for or speak for the army alone.
Right.
They're not informed enough to speak for the Marines.
Sure.
Now, the Marines, they probably think they could speak for everyone just because they are Marines. They're the baddest ones on the
Sure.
planet, according to the Marines. Yeah.
Yep. I think the Marines do. I mean, the Marines tend to believe in the Marines. I mean, they're well. I don't call brainwashed. That's not fair. Well, they're well indoctrinated in the Marine Corps, and it's awesome. We need that.
Yeah.
I think Army are probably more susceptible to speak out for everything they don't know because we're kind of a total branch. We do a lot of things.
Yes.
We don't have specific. I don't really hear much from Air Force and Navy.
No.
But I was going to say, I think that's the lower meat and potatoes, other than egos and stuff like that. I think the only time we've seen it is probably lately in the news.
True.
We've had some high profile military personnel, and I'm not going to name them all because it's probably a political trigger, send us down a whole different rabbit hole.
Right.
But these people coming out as, I'm Admiral this or I'm, General this or what, and they're acting like they speak for the entire service. I think we even had a group of them
Yeah.
sign something like they represent me. I'm obviously no longer in, but if you don't want to, follow your commander's orders, that has nothing to do with my opinion.
Right. And one thing I remember when I was in, I used to, on the news, whatever was going on at the time, there would be some retired command sergeant major, some retired general, some retired colonel, some retired person on some news outlets speaking for the military and the morale of the military. And I'm looking like, no, that's not true. No, no, things suck down here. Sorry, that's not true. And that's coming from when I was low enlisted all the way up to non-commissioned officer. So,
that's a great example too that I wasn't even thinking about. How many times have you been on a base, where I was in Macedonia, and we get these visitors. Even the sergeant major of the Army came there, and they're coming around, they're doing their tour. Everybody's rolling out the red carpet, smiling, teeth brushed, and all that stuff. And they go back and like, well, the soldier morale is high. This is great. This is awesome. As soon as they leave, everybody's like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then they go back and report this stuff. So, that's kind of not the same. I don't feel like it's on topic because we're kind of fooling them too.
Right.
But they really can't speak for all of us, even if they just speak for one or two of us that they talk to.
Yes.
So I guess it's kind of commonplace for them.
Yeah, and what I was referencing a lot was these, since we're talking about vets, like when they're on these social media or news outlets and they say, oh, the morale is high, I have my sources. Well, you're a retired command sergeant major. I doubt if you're talking to that private or that sergeant or that, even an LT that's down on the ground, boots on the ground. You're talking to a fellow command sergeant major. And when they walk around, like you said, Jim, wow, everyone's smiling. Everyone's happy. I guess it's not as bad as I may have heard. Yeah, yeah.
Even
That's
worse, starting your day off with a round of golf and a great breakfast and lunch is going to be great for morale, I'm sure.
Exactly.
What are those guys in the guard tower doing? I don't know, but they're not golfing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I've done it too many times. Even like when I was at Fort McPherson, they had a 9-hole golf course on Fort McPherson, and next thing you know, they tore down some housing and they had
another
9
holes.
Yeah.
Morale is definitely improved.
Oh yeah. Try to get on the golf course, private. See what happens.
You guys go live in tents, but we got 18 full holes now.
That's right.
All right, we don't want to bash too many officers. That
No,
gives away
no,
the
no.
fact that we're not officers.
Right.
But
But
in all
no,
fairness, yeah,
I like it though. I mean, I'll throw this out. I enjoyed my military career, but at a certain point, I just said it's time to do something different. So, man, I like to bash them.
right,
I say we can do that because we served.
right.
Yeah.
But you don't go around talking for the military, do you?
No, no, never,
You
never.
don't represent them.
Right. And even in our conversations we have had, in the past and, in the recent history here, I tell people, like if I repeat something that you say as a vet, I say, well, my friend Jim, he told me he experienced this. I don't just say, hey, at the VA they do this,
Right.
do that. I just tell them about personal experiences.
Well,
You
I'm gonna
know,
be I'm gonna be real. It's easy to fall into. I don't
it's
want to
this.
deceive people acting like we know how to separate the difference, and we can't be victims of, or victims, not even victim wouldn't be the word. We can't be guilty of doing it because, like I said earlier, I've probably done it before. It's easy to fall into and walk into like a situation and be like, this is what it always is because it's ingrained in you constantly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to opinions, when you're standing before the world or a crowd or more than one person, it's very hard to justify your opinion speaking for everyone. Does that make any sense? Like if you're
Yeah.
having a one-on-one conversation with somebody and they ask you, what's the military like? You can share like, well, it's this, it's that,
Yeah.
chow is kind of whatever, the food is, the sleep, you can share all those experiences and probably be genuinely close to what a lot of people think.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but I think you have to be honest when certain questions, if you're having a serious conversation, someone's going to ask you more than one question. And I think you have to be honest. For instance, I used to be a civilian police officer, and someone here in Texas asked me, "Hey, why do police officers do this?" I said, "Hey, wait a minute. Now in Georgia, the state law in Georgia is different than the state law in Texas. Now, if you're talking about the militaries, well, I was military police. I wasn't infantry. You
Right.
know, in the military police arena, we said, hey, before we get out this Humvee back then, we say death before dismount. We're not getting out of here. No.
Why they give us the big guns?
Yeah,
I can't lift this. It's got to
that's
stay.
right.
We need two
Now,
men and one man sleeping.
that's right. But now you have someone who's infantry, and they're used to walking or, road marching 15, 20 miles.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, I can't speak on that.
Well, in all fairness, too, let's be real. I don't. I'm never gonna say that military police are better than any other soldiers or Marines or however. I don't want to get into brand specific,
Right,
but we are in the public eye with a duty that's not just combat related that requires us to have a higher standard of our behavior.
right,
So it's not that you don't have bad behavior from some guys like that, but you tend to see more people who have to watch themselves all the time
right,
than you would for a carefree. Hey, let's just go shoot people and then we can go party like it's 1999.
right. But I think a lot. I see a lot more people try to speak for the entire military or vets,
Right,
more so than those vets who are their personal military career specific in a conversation.
right.
And to their defense, it might be because they're talking to one person or a group of people who have no military experience. So they're just giving them theirs without that intent to mean this is how the military
Well,
is.
that's what I was kind of alluding at
Right.
earlier. Is that when you're in a one-on-one conversation and people ask you, "What's it like?" I'm thinking about joining the military. Sometimes it's real easy to say, "Hey, this is what it's like," as if you're speaking for the whole military.
Right.
It's easy to do that because it is going to be hard. You are going to lose sleep. You are going to make friends. You're going to have enemies. You're going to do tough things. So those things are kind of standard across the board. But you can't just say it sucks,
Right.
because somebody else might love it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right. So
Yeah.
then you'd have to start saying, well, I didn't enjoy it, or I did enjoy it, or whatever your scenario.
Right. I agree. 100%. 100%. That's a part of, like we said, you have to be honest in that
Right.
conversation.
Good.
And
Good.
sometimes it's just as easy. Hey, I'm not speaking for everyone, but my experience, it sucked. Like
Right.
going out to the field, it sucked. But in all honesty, I hated it, but it was a good experience.
So yeah, I hope hopefully in the political realm, which we're witnessing, these days, hopefully people can stop saying you got to believe this guy because he's a veteran or he's in the military. Or hopefully they can stop that
Please,
because it's
please.
just not practical. I mean,
Right,
nobody in the military speaks for me. Nobody does.
right.
So I can't expect to speak for them or anything. So we got to
Yeah,
stop doing that.
yeah, and the other thing is just because someone says something about a vet or a soldier that's negative, they're not anti-America, and they're not a patriot. You have to stop that.
Right.
Just stop it. All they're doing is voicing their own opinion, and just like anything else, all opinions vary.
Right. So, hopefully, I mean, I don't know what kind of people are out there listening or watching us. I would assume we could get a whole bunch, maybe some people understanding and speaking to the people who aren't in the military or are connected with the military. That's good, really good advice for them. So when they see on TV that some general or some whatever is speaking about, something against some political thing, that he's speaking his opinion. That's what he is.
Right,
He can't speak for me. Even if I agree with him, he can't speak for me. That's why we all have our own opinions and rights and things like that. So even though we're somewhat controlled by these people as far as rank and orders, but they can't speak for us.
right. Now I know a lot of people. Like I know a former Navy SEAL. Who? Yeah, if you wasn't in the firefight, he speaks bad about you. I just call him Johnny Rambo.
Right, right,
I can do that because we were close at that time. But
right.
he spoke about the military from his point of view, and he had a lot of interesting stories. A
Sure.
lot, But when we were together, him and a mutual friend of ours, the mutual friend would look at me and say, "Hey, did you experience that?" I say, "Hell no, I was military police." You know.
Right. But yet he has no idea what it's like to make a traffic stop on somebody you
Exactly.
have no clue. So,
Yes.
he could take his big guns and his snorkel wherever he wants to go
Yeah.
and tell you all his stories. But, I think it's not fair for him to have some level of disrespect for you because you didn't live what he lived.
Right.
And I think we've
Right.
talked about that. And one of the things, I don't want to get too far off that, but one of the things that made me realize that is we were, laughing and joking about the Air Force guys. Well, now one of the new jobs these kids are doing, younger kids too, are these drone pilot things.
Oh man. Yes.
So, and we can all sit there like how fun it would be to fly a drone.
Yeah.
But one of the things brought to my attention by one of the vets I was talking to is, could you imagine looking down the screen and seeing somebody, a human life at the other end, and you're the one that pushes the button?
Exactly.
I mean, I can't imagine that in that aspect. Obviously, military police, you can imagine having to shoot somebody in it, but you just never know. You really never know.
Right.
So
And going to our forte, which is military police and law enforcement, it's doing it like you said, doing a traffic stop. People don't know how your heart is racing, and all the energy that goes into that. Something as simple as a traffic stop.
yeah,
So, like you said, most people don't have that experience. You think it's easy because you're in a military installation, but no. As
right,
military police, we knew,
right. I
not
like
all
to
soldiers are heroes.
I like to tell them, I like to compare it. Think about your first date. That moment right before your first kiss.
Yes.
You know how nerve wracking it is. You could
Yeah.
have Barney walk right by you and you wouldn't even notice.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So imagine yourself in that moment, except it's life or death with some guy at the other end of the barrel. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. It's interesting. It's interesting. That's why when I hear people talk and they talk with such absolution, you
Right.
know, and I'm like, okay, that's their experience. I'm not
Sure.
gonna say anything.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, their experience is valuable. It's always
Oh yeah,
valuable to
absolutely.
contribute to the conversation. But sometimes we tend to get wrapped up in our own experiences and feel like that everyone should understand the world from our view. And I
Right.
think that's important, even in the conversation we have right now. Is we are veterans, and yes, we do probably as a whole. I can't speak for all veterans, otherwise I'd be the biggest hypocrite on the
That's
first
right.
episode ever. But I think as a whole, veterans have seen things that most people don't see, even if it's just basic training.
That's right.
So they probably have a slightly different perspective on your natural everyday life that other people don't have.
Yeah, and keeping it in the context of vets, in a lot of situations, I would much rather be next to a vet than just a regular civilian.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, just because of
Yeah,
that experience. And they might
right,
have only done 3 years and if you take just the basic, and I don't know if they still call it AIT or whatever, after basic training, but just taking that into account, the average person, they wouldn't be able to handle
right,
that.
right. And see, there I just kind of displayed one of those scenarios where I almost feel like you kind of can generalize
Yeah,
and speak for the military, but I don't think you can, say that everybody is like that. Even there
right.
are probably exceptions. People that went to basic training and didn't phase them,
Yes, that's
you
right.
know.
Right.
So
And then they'll listen to, like, if some of our viewers right now, they're probably looking like, what are you talking about basic training? That was too easy.
right,
You know,
right, right.
there's no experience there. What are they talking about?
Yeah, yeah, and
You
I'm
know,
gonna tell you, I've had some of those guys from the farmlands out in Midwest come in
yeah,
there, throwing bays or hail bays or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
I know nothing about that stuff, and they're like, "What's the problem, Jim?"
yeah,
I'm like, "This rock is heavy," and, and they're like, "You want me to carry it for you?" No, I'm okay. I got it.
yeah, yeah. I remember in the conversation, I was telling them about a probably like 5 or 7 mile ruck march. And the guy was just looking at me like, and I said, "Oh, you experienced that?" He said, "Yes, yeah, I was infantry." I said, "Never mind, we're good."
You got an
Like now,
extra pair of socks I can borrow?
yeah, exactly. And I would say, in the same line, that now, if someone ever asked me, "Hey, in your military career, have you ever deployed?" I would say no.
Really?
Yeah, because I've been around so many, and I don't like to call them kids, but so many of the younger soldiers now who they've been to Afghanistan 2 times, Iraq, deployed, pulling triggers.
Oh, right,
I went to Bosnia. You
right.
know,
Well,
nothing
yeah,
happened in Bosnia.
it is. I don't want to bleed into a different topic too far off the beaten trail here, but you're right. I mean, I even said to a guy in a conversation that I had a lot more respect for the older veterans because I've interacted with
Yeah,
them. Because
that's
to
right.
me, I feel like they were boots on the ground. They
Yeah,
were all infantry.
I agree. I agree.
And he took offense to it because he had like 6 Afghanistan tours. And I
Wow.
was like, well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you didn't, before you crack my neck, I'm not saying
Right.
you didn't do good things,
Right.
or earn your keep. I'm just saying back then, things were a little different. And
Yeah.
even right now, I think they're a little different. So even given that, let me tie it back into the topic. I can't even speak for these soldiers in there today with their first deployment
Thank you.
because their
Thank you.
experience may be totally different than what I went through for all of my deployments.
Right. And I was telling a couple of coworkers of mine today about an incident as a contractor over in Afghanistan when certain things happen. But knowing what the soldiers went through while we were there and going through that, and is it's different. It's
Right.
different. I respect the soldiers. I respect vets. Hey, if you don the uniform, you have my respect. Because I know somewhat of what you had to go through. So there's a lot of empathy there. But like you with that one, if they deployed 6 times,
Right. It was
yeah, I
crazy.
can't even imagine that.
And some of the stories and oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
things I would not even want to dream about, let alone experience.
right. And then on top of that, one guy I know, it wasn't 6 times, it was 4 times, Iraq, Afghanistan, two apiece. And we started joking. I said, "Are you married?" "Yeah." "She's hung in there with me." I was like, wow, hats off to her too.
Right. Right.
At home, taking care of the family. So there's a
Yep.
lot of things when people speak, I say, "Ugh, vets go through a lot," but
Right.
once they have that ring on the fingers, you got to think about that the other half at home.
And that's a good way to tie into it too. You can't speak for the entire military because there's so many factors like that.
Right.
It's a total different experience when I was a young single soldier going in, you know, to Germany where I was 18 and I could drink, and that's
Yes.
a total different experience than if
That's
you
right.
take a married guy and take him, hundreds of thousand miles away from his family.
Right.
That's another reason you can't really speak for other people.
Right.
So you got to take it all as you can. Like I said, I think it's fair to generalize. If I were to summarize my view on this, I think it's fair to generalize certain things about the military because I think
Right.
anybody can look on TV and see that. But I think it's very unfair to stand up on a podium and pretend you speak for the military.
Exactly. For
So,
those who serve and for those who have served.
exactly.
Is-
Well, any last minutes before we pull the pin on this one?
Now I think we're ready to pull the pin.
All right, let's pull the pin.
All
All
right.
right, so let's move into a segment that we want to try to do just to give us an opportunity to, let ourselves vent on something, an experience. We call the pull the pin already, and it's really just something we pick out of our daily life that just, I don't know if I come up with a good adjective, but it irks us enough that we want to just pull the pin on the spot. So I'll give you, Mike, if you got something, I'll give you the first go, or if you want, I can share mine.
Oh, you go ahead.
All right, you're going to find out I got a lot of problems with bathrooms. But in particular, I don't know who the guy is that invented the round toilet bowl, because I don't care what gender you are or want to be or pretend to be or any of that stuff. That round toilet bowl is not sufficient for anyone to sit on and do anything other than, you know, drop the kids off the pool, as they say.
Right.
If you try to interject with any other opportunities or options, that toilet bowl is way too small to start screaming and pushing things in. So I don't know who you are that invented that, but I do want to thank the guy who created the elongated one, who was more practical.
Oh my God.
What you got, Mike?
Well, I would say I fought long and hard about this one, and I know some of the viewers might not like this, even though I understand it. I don't. Why, when I go to pick up some plants or flowers or some sod, I have to go to a nursery? I never understood it. I just want to pull the pin on that one. No, when I think of a nursery, I think of nursery rhymes, nursery with some babies, all of that. I never envisioned sod, trees, small trees, seeds, dirt.
Maybe what you don't see, Mike, is somebody in the back cradling the seeds.
Yeah,
Maybe
helping it grow.
somebody feeding them. I don't know. Maybe you're missing something.
I know it probably sounds like a stretch, but hey, this is our segment, and I'm calling it pull the pin, and I'm pulling the pin on that one, man. We need to change the name. I'm sorry.
Awesome. No more nurseries and elongated toilets.
Exactly.
Off to a great start. Love it. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us here at Pull the Pin already. We hope you had as much fun as we did. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or whatever else you want to do. But most importantly, leave a comment. Let us know how you feel. Until next time, Godspeed.
And pull the pin.